The Sylvan Watchers faction just released, and there's a few really important things that players should, really should know about. So we had dwarves, we had shadowkin. I saw players making tons of mistakes, so hopefully at the end of this video you will be much better prepared for kind of what comes with the new faction in this game. So let's dive straight into it. What's going on, team? It is MurderInc here, back with another Raid Shadow Legends video talking about the Sylvan Watchers, the brand new faction that was just released to us. What can you do to better kind of prepare yourself for a new faction? Yes, there are things you should do. Let's learn from the mistakes many players made back during Shadowkin, Dwarves, all of that good stuff. So as we can see, we have 4 legendaries added, 2, 4, 6 epics added, and 1 rare. 1 measly rare added to the mix here. So what's the first thing everyone should be thinking about? Faction Wars is going to come out. Are we going to get more champions before then? Absolutely. They know what they're doing. I think, what was it, a month, 2 months after Shadowkin is when they released the Faction Wars. You want to be ready to do this without having to wail. That's the key here. When I say ready to do Faction Wars, you might be thinking, Murder, how are we supposed to get champions without pulling them? That's where what's happening right now. And I wanted to make a separate video just on this, but I'm just going to add it to what we're talking about here today. This fusion here, this kind of puts players in an awkward spot. If you're a whale and you pull lots of shards, depending on how lucky you are and how many shards you pull, this may not matter to you at all. But my Celiac Priest Ornn, I've made a few videos on him, post-nerf, pre-nerf, from the test server. He's a really good champion, but his kit is so strong for Faction Wars. Now this can be an issue for quite an obvious reason. Morrigaine, the current fusion Undead Horde support legendary, is rather strong. Yes, there are all these things about the fusion being hard to get, kind of higher on the paywall scale. I get all that. We're not necessarily talking about that aspect here, but as a legendary herself, she's very useful for quite a few players. So where does that put someone knowing that this new Faction Wars event's coming up, and this guy, my Celiac Priest Ornn, Mushroom Man as I call him, is going to be very strong. He has survivability, and he's not just strong. This is kind of what I want to talk about here. If you've done Faction Wars and you've already completed up to a certain level, you know that there are certain champions you can keep at level 50. This guy is one of them. Why is he one of them? Because of his passive. Whenever a poison debuff is activated on an enemy, increases this champion's HP and defense by 5%, stacking up to 25%. That is a lot of survivability. He's a support. Well, I guess he's an HP champion, 20,000 base health, 11, just under 1,200 base defense. Those are pretty good stats. So now he's getting a stacking HP and defense passive on top of that, making him a very viable option for being that kind of maximum efficiency level 50 champion here. Now, a lot of people were kind of dissuaded by the nerfs done to this guy after they saw what he needed to solo these stage 25 dragon runs, but all of that aside, like I said, this guy's very high value as far as Faction Wars go. Now, with that being said, if you want to gamble that there's going to be better champions that come out that can do what he does, same thing applies, you can use him at level 50, you can do that. I don't know what champions are coming out, you don't know what champions are coming out, only time will tell. So this is why it's kind of a hard spot. If you're going to skip this fusion, you're kind of on the luckier side here, because as tough as this fusion is going to be resource-wise, it's not going to be that bad to get 4 copies of the rares, rank them up, ascend them, and then fuse one single Mushroom Man, right? However, you're gonna have to start making a decision if you do tend to go for Morrigaine. I can't make that decision for you. She's good. She can be very strong for quite a few accounts, early game, mid game, all the way up to late game accounts. She has that potential. So it might be better for you to stay on your current path and go for this fusion for sure, and kind of forego this guy and say, you know what, maybe I will pull him eventually. That would be ideal. So that's going to be the main point here. I want to talk about the fusion. I know that was kind of long, but it was a really important point. Second thing is going to be, what do we need now that we have a new faction? Energy. Why do we need energy? Because accessories. I can say it a million times. Accessories. Sylvan Watchers. Look, I have one piece. I have not done any farming. So this is something everyone's going to have to do. Make sure you do this ahead of time, because we all know how frustrating it can be to get quality accessories. Now, we don't need to go crazy. We don't need 6-star legendary or 6-star perfect epic ones, but keep it in the back of your mind while you're farming. And why am I even bringing this up? Because there were a lot of people that made the mistake of selling things, saying, I don't even have 3 of these champions for Shadowkin, for the dwarves. Why would I keep them? Now, it might seem like an obvious thing not to do, but players are silver hungry. They need silver. So if they see these accessories for champions they don't even have, they say, oh, this is going to be so far down the line. You can still take that approach, but if you see a good accessory, just leave it. You're going to say, that was such a good call. Later down the line, when you do get a champion, you're ready for faction wars, and you can just slap on whatever accessory you saved. So second piece of advice, definitely do that. Now, the third main point that I want to talk about here is huge. This is another topic I was going to make a separate video on, and I decided to just incorporate into this. I might make a more in-depth one, but let's just talk about it for now. Every time a new faction comes out, I highly recommend, and you will get incredible value out of this, going over all of your champions that you currently have geared and updating your gear. What does that mean? So I do a ton of account work for players, whether it's takeovers, coaching, gear cleansing. I'm very close to 3,000, which is a lot. I've been doing it for years now. So the main problem I always see is players have plus 12, plus 8 artifacts that are better than what they're currently wearing in their bag. Some of them are even plus 16 and they forgot about them. So the perfect time to address this is when a new faction comes out. Update all of your champions. All you have to do is click on any champion, hit filter, go to fitting room, look at the stats they currently have. So I have 308 speed, 589 accuracy here. So those are like the 2 focal points for me. Don't care too much about HP or defense based on where I know I use this champion. So what am I going to do? I'm going to start looking at and matching the pieces, saying, okay, if my focus is speed and accuracy, let me click those 2 buttons and see if I have an upgrade. Bam, already straight out the gate, I have a piece sitting here that's plus 9 speed and plus 15 accuracy that I probably never would have known had I not done this. So you're simply going to make a list of all your most important champions for all of your most crucial content in the game. Of course, if they're speed tuned, you have to take that into consideration. Don't start upping speeds on champions that are specifically speed tuned, but for a champion like Cassandra, she is not. Then you replace the gear you're wearing on them. Why is this so important? What this does is it makes sure your current champions have the best quality gear available to you that's on the champions you're currently using, and then as soon as you start getting new faction champions, which we should start seeing more and more of, you can automatically gear them and not say, wait, am I saving this piece for that guy? Am I saving this piece for that guy? It's not going to be that hard. The next thing is, and I do this all the time, even to this day, I'll do the same tactic with someone like, this guy's not geared. Let's go through. It's not going to happen on this, but I'll just use him as an example. I'll find a piece that I left on a champion that was terrible, god awful. For my account, it would be a 5-star piece of gear that somehow I overlooked. And if I did that, I would realize it by using this technique, which is something that players should be doing quite often, not just for new factions, but it's really crucial when a new faction is released. So what do I do then? I do not replace the gear in the fitting room. I do not hit this try on button. I don't do that. I simply go to the champion, remember the piece I'm swapping, and I delete the piece straight off of it. This means that the piece is so bad it doesn't fit anywhere on your account, and you can just straight up delete it. So you're not wasting any silver. Like I said, silver's a crutch for a lot of players. It is very hard to get if you're not spending money on energy consistently in this game here, so it's important to talk about, right? So with that being said, do this. This is going to save you so much. And I mean, if you've never done this before, you're going to be mind blown at how much better gear you have sitting inside your artifact storage. Players never realize it. I mean, as you can see here, all of the gear I have is plus 16. And that's not just for clan versus clan. These are pieces that at some point I use on some champions here. I mean, I don't think I can even find a piece that isn't upgraded. Maybe some of the Hydra gear, quickly scrolling through. Nothing yet, nothing yet. Okay, so I have one piece here from Clan Boss that I probably got recently that's not upgraded here. So that's a piece that I'll upgrade to 16 and I'll leave it here. And if I leave it here for long enough, I'll completely forget about it. So if I don't go back to my champions, say, how can I make Herndeg better? Outside of adding boots onto him. How can I make my ninja better? How can I make Under Priest Morrigaine outside of him missing 4 pieces? How can I make these champions better? If I don't sit down and take the time to really focus on where my gear is supposed to go, my depth and gear quality will never get better, and the depth and champions I can use for any given content at any given moment will never increase. All of these things are pure progress gains, something that you don't see too frequently in Raid because of how fast-paced the beginning is and how kind of slow things get. What do I mean by that? When you're at my stage, you end up farming Fire Knight for like 2 months hoping for 1 upgrade. That's what it comes down to. So that's a very slow way of kind of progressing in this game once you're on the end game side. But by doing something like this is a pure progress update to your account because there's always pieces. I know for a fact of the 566 plus 16 pieces, give or take, that I have currently here, I can upgrade a ton of champions, and I have to do that now that the new faction's out and there are champions that I do want to gear. Shall have them readily available for any type of future content that comes out and have the best gear possible that I don't have to take from other champions available in my gear and artifact storage for these new Sylvan Watchers that hopefully I'll pull. I mean, I just did a video on the 2x Sacred this weekend. I pulled 22 Sacred shards and I didn't get anything. Unlucky, right? But the good news is, as I showed in that video as well, I have 229 Ancient Shards, 48 Voids. It's nothing too impressive, but for those 2x events, I think I have decent odds, and of course I'll keep gaining shards as we go on in time, but I have pretty decent odds of getting Sylvan Watchers, and with that I do want to be ready. So that's the main advice I would have for all of you. Second thing, quick thing to touch on, because a lot of players also do this, do not neglect your forge. Clan vs clan is the most ideal time to do this, but if you don't mess with clan vs clan at all, clear out your forge as often as you can. It is very possible the Magisteel mat is lacking on your account. Very possible. If that's the case, don't worry about it, but you always want to get rid of this during clan vs clan. It's a direct silver gain for you, and it can open up your account to much more upgrades instead of, I've seen people having this at 10,000 cap for the Magisteel. I've seen people with thousands of 5 to 6 star resilience and perception pieces that they can craft. Those are all possible upgrades, and it's just foolish not to craft them on cooldown during every clan versus clan, or just whenever you feel like it if you don't partake in that. So that's going to conclude this video here today. Hopefully you got some guidance and advice as to how to better prepare yourself for this new faction that came out. By following everything we talked about here today, you're going to be much better than the average player who doesn't have this information. Going into things like the new faction wars, Lydia's requirements are going to go up. Lydia is an incredible champion. You want to get her as soon as possible, so preparing yourself to get her quicker is going to be ideal. If you already have her like I do, we're going to get new rewards. Now quickly looking at the faction wars here, I don't know what they're going to add after this, but listen, they better be good, right? The rewards better be good. So that's going to conclude this video. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed this content, don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe, turn the notification bell, and I will see you all in my next upload.